Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about Train to Busan. Zombie films have really been regulated to horror and more B genres usually, but we've never seen a fully, acceptable and good Hollywood zombie film. This is probably the closest attempt at actually doing that in the way that Hollywood would do it, but also understanding the B-movie roots and actually kind of how classic Hollywood handled disaster movie kind of things to make this the more successful Hollywood zombie film than Hollywood could ever make. I often hear this film compared to World War Z because of the fast-moving zombies within it. And that, I get that on a, these zombies are fast and they're fast in that too, and that Dawn of the Dead movie that sucked also. Oh, well, it didn't suck, but it wasn't, I'm not going to see that again or anything. I mean, the remake. But Train to Busan gets what zombie movies can do, what zombie movies can say. It can add social commentary. It can use very slim kind of character traits to make it work and make you care about their characters. It can add the thrills and everything that a good zombie movie has. It can use the simplicity in ways that many films fall apart in doing, and it can do all of those things while also kind of reminding you why classic Hollywood made disaster films in this way. It's a really awesome kind of fun B zombie film at its core, and it doesn't really let go of that and isn't really embarrassed of that, and I think often really succeeds in that better than most American films that will probably take themselves too seriously with that. This film certainly takes itself seriously, but it understands the B-moviness at its core. Now, this director, Yeon Sang-ho, was traditionally an animation director. In fact, he directed an animated prequel called Seoul Station, which I would like to review at some point, but I felt since this is, the first one, although it came out like a month later, I thought I would review this one first. But you can almost tell that someone coming from animation, understanding visual storytelling, understanding what they're doing with that storyteller that understands what he's saying with these kind of formats, and Train to Busan understands its B-movie roots and wraps it up in kind of an awesome, epic kind of blockbuster way that I wish Hollywood would do, and it succeeds better than I think Hollywood has with any sort of zombie film it's made thus far. A divorced fund manager who has forgotten his daughter's birthday again and isn't sure what to get her, and just gets her the same present he got a year before and asks her what she really wants, and she wants to go to Busan to see her mother, so they decide to get on a train to Busan. This film takes place in Korea, South Korea. They get on a train to go there, and then a very sick young lady gets on the train as well, and they happen to be on a train when a zombie outbreak has taken all of the cities in Korea. In there is a working class man and his pregnant wife, a high school baseball team, a rich and selfish CEO, elderly sisters, and a homeless man, and they're all stuck on this train as they try to fight off the zombies that are on the train and the zombies that are waiting for them at each different station as they try to get to Busan and somewhere safe while trying to fight off these zombies from infecting them and probably taking down society as well. One thing that Train to Busan really reminds me of is a film, High and the Mighty, which is an airplane kind of disaster film. It's the film that really brought about the kind of films that the Zucker brothers film Airplane would later parody, which most people totally forget about that genre other than Airplane. But what that genre was really good at is, in fact, in the High and the Mighty, they have a part where each character who's going to be, quote unquote important, and although in all of these films there's always a character who is the most important, like John Wayne in the High and the Mighty, like the divorced fund manager dad and his daughter are the quote unquote most important, I guess, but they're other characters. And in that film, literally everyone comes up to the ticket manager and says a little thing like, "Oh honey, you're always doing this thing," and there's like, "Oh, this is our honeymoon. Oh, I hate my job. Here's my ticket." You get little slim things of them, and it works in a group setting because you at least understand, the basic framework of someone. It's kind of like understanding, that guy who always goes to the snack machine at work, or that guy who drinks too much coffee, or the guy that sleeps at his desk who you call sleepy. It's those kind of things. And although it might not be the most complex way to tell a story necessarily, it works when you're kind of telling a big disaster film because you don't really have to go into everyone's existential drama. You just kind of cut to it in this real B-movie kind of tightly structured sort of way. And in that, Train to Busan really, really works. In fact, it amazingly works in that way. I really like that about it. We don't see that a lot. I think the last time I saw an American film that did that was probably the Liam Neeson movie Non-Stop, which did that fairly well. The reason you do that is so it's a little more understandable. If you just had a horde of people, that's kind of hard to relate to a horde of people. That's why they use it with the zombies in this film, when they kind of come at you in a horde and do that whole chain ball of people, much like in World War Z. This uses the aesthetics of World War Z probably better than World War Z. I actually kind of like that about it. It's an interesting thing. I never thought I'd see a zombie train film, horror and trains, you know, like Terror Train with Jamie Lee Curtis or something. I think what this director understands, and probably I haven't seen any of his animated films, although I want to see Seoul Station, is that he at least understands how you're using these basic kind of structured outlines of a character and how he's using that to make this film. I think Train to Busan uses these kind of outlines to really tell its story effectively and get you onto like the thrills of it, where, you know, they have people climbing on a luggage rack to get away from the zombies. It is really thrilling in that kind of amazing blockbuster that was influenced by the B-movie way. And he also adds up some social commentary that I think Romero would actually be proud of, or Carpenter, or your greater horror directors, or even kind of the basic thing of zombie films, which zombie films usually have some social commentary in them. You can do kind of the emptier zombie film, which has no social commentary, which usually doesn't honestly work as well or feel as good as it probably could, whereas Train to Busan has that social commentary within it, and kind of shows you how quickly things would get tremendously shitty, and the kind of class warfare that would already be happening right away when this kind of emergency would happen. I feel like it gets close to referencing Romero in several cases. Particularly there's a scene towards the end where they get close, but they're not quite as mean, and if you see the film you probably would know. I would definitely say this is like a good zombie film for people who like zombie films. That's kind of one of my biggest, I know I keep bringing up World War Z, but the reason I do is because it felt like someone who like saw Night of the Living Dead 20 years ago and said, sure, I can make a zombie film, whatever. But Train to Busan understands the genre-ness of it, understands what it's doing with this genre, and would be a film I would recommend to someone who likes horror and genre films and B movies and has a more eclectic taste, because they'd understand what this film's really doing with it. It doesn't abandon the zombie film, but it doesn't abandon the kind of Hollywood storytelling that it's really using in it. I understand this is a different country, but they're using kind of Hollywood tropes. The reason I bring up a film like The High and the Mighty, which, you know, is a John Wayne movie, it's a very Hollywood movie, and using that kind of storytelling, it kind of reminds me of what people like Spielberg and Lucas try to do with their work, and how they get that to work within their kind of a film. It shows kind of a blockbuster way that a lot of directors wish they could do and fail to do. Now, I will say it is more of a thrilling, interesting experience. I think some people complain about the drama in it, which I thought works in its kind of superficial way. I didn't have a problem with it. I think it does maybe overload certain things, but I liked how it told this story. I think Train to Busan is one of the more interesting zombie films and one of the kind of foreign horror movies that I think people will be talking about for a long time now. They'll be sitting around talking about how like, oh man, but Train to Busan is like this perfect little genre zombie thing. And you even have good performances, and people seem to know exactly how to exhibit kind of people they're doing, even the kind of working class husband in it and his pregnant wife, and even the little girl. You really understand who they are, and these actors really get that to work within the kind of basic kind of outlines of who these people are. And I think a lot of people misunderstand that sort of a thing. It's actually, I think, a kind of a good way to kind of delegate that. You couldn't really get Train to Busan to work as well as it does without it, and if it was just about the dad and the daughter, I don't think that would be as interesting really, or as thrilling. You kind of need all those people and all these kind of basic frameworks to even get into the social commentary aspects of it. The only plot line I think that doesn't really work is there's a thing where the dad maybe sort of could have been a part of causing this. I mean, I guess that needed to be in there, but it kind of like lets go of that because you have this really evil CEO guy who the film kind of puts, I guess it doesn't put the blame on it. As an audience, it kind of puts your hard feelings in, so making it the dad's fault is kind of a little silly and maybe a little too much. If there's anything like you could just cut out and this film would be a lot better, it would be that, I think. Train to Busan is gory, it has a lot of thrills in it, and it has everything that a good zombie film does. It doesn't just forget about its zombie roots, and it seems to be very much in love with being a Hollywood kind of a disaster movie also, and it rides both those better than I've seen a disaster movie do in like honestly forever. That's one of the things I really love about Train to Busan, because it's able to ride it in a really enjoyable, digestible way. Often the thing is with foreign films is in America we only really get the kind of artistic hits at festivals and stuff. We don't really get films like this that are genre and big hit. Train to Busan was a very big hit in Korea. We don't get those as often, but I think it shows a lot of more interesting genre filmmakers than we really have over here. There are flaws in this film. I don't think this is a perfect zombie film, but the kind of zombie film it's being is something that I actually appreciate a lot more. You know, I think it's sometimes interesting to see foreign films that are able to kind of do the Hollywood thing better than Hollywood is and be very much a Hollywood movie, and it feels that way about it, you know, particularly how it uses its characters, how it uses these rough outlines. It feels like a big blockbuster and it rides it very well. almost in a genre way. I guess it's probably more genre than Hollywood would necessarily do it. They'd probably overcomplicate it, and I guess this does, so maybe it's doing it effectively. I like how genre it is. I think that exhibits a really great filmmaker and storyteller, that he's able to make such a kind of a compact, well-told kind of film like Train to Busan is, for the most part, or at least a film that understands why it's telling its story and why it's doing those kind of characters. Probably better than a lot of people who claim to be great zombie filmmakers but never quite get it as well as they probably could. This film understands zombies, it understands Hollywood filmmaking, and it gets it all to work in a really great thrilling package. And I think it's probably one of those kind of interesting horror films that I'll at least remember. I keep thinking about it. I keep thinking about the various characters in it. I think about when people get bitten. It's interesting who gets bitten and who doesn't. Some of it you can probably call before, but it's in that wonderful genre way, not in that kind of eye-rolling, I saw that coming way that I think really works for Train to Busan. I think a really fun, thrilling kind of zombie film, and I actually am more excited for Seoul Station than I was previously before viewing this movie. I think it's probably one of those zombie films that'll, at least for the most part, leave you satisfied and make you hope that maybe one day someone can take the great ideas from Romero and not forget about all of them and make kind of a soulless zombie film, make a zombie film that understands the real soul and meaning behind the genre, and infect it with a great Hollywood spirit behind it is something that I think Train to Busan probably does better than any film I can think of thus far. So if you have seen Train to Busan and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.